Hello everybody, Gibsmatic here, and today I want to be talking about 5 things that I would like to see added in the Gunrunning DLC for GTA Online. So whenever Gunrunning was announced a couple months ago, I came up with a list of 5 things that I would like to see added in the Gunrunning DLC. And I wrote it down and sort of forgot about it. And I was going to make a video, but just always pushed it to the side until last Thursday whenever we got more information on Gunrunning. And while some of the things on this list that I'm going to be talking about in this video are a little bit more likely and have been hinted at in this new post for GTA Online, and if you want to go check out those screenshots and stuff, I do have a video on that. One other final thing I want to say is that these aren't necessarily individual items I would like to see added to GTA Online. They're more of actual things that Rockstar should improve on from past DLCs. So I'm not going to be talking about specific clothing or specific vehicles, or say I want this certain jet to be added or this certain weapon to be added. I'm not going to be talking about that necessarily. I'm going to be talking about things that Rockstar should improve on from past DLCs to make this one pretty much the best DLC it can be. So let's first start off with more variety in armories and bunkers. Now we do know that bunkers are going to be added to this game. We saw that in one of the screenshots, and they do look pretty amazing. And I'm hoping that with this screenshot it does show off what I'm talking about, and I want to see more variety in these bunkers, because in the past with some of the business related DLCs there hasn't been too much variety except for locations. So if we look at, some of the offices in Finance and Felony, there's 4 offices, and really the cheapest one, the Maze Bank West building, is pretty much the best one to go for because it's the cheapest, and it's, unless you want a specific location downtown, there's no reason to go with the Lawn Bank building or even the Maze Bank Tower, because not only is it more expensive by quite a bit, but it also doesn't give you any specific reason to buy it. There's no difference really aside from views and maybe the location, but location and views are pretty much all subjective anyways. There's no objective reason to go for that, and some people may like that because it's cheaper, but at the same time I think it'd be nice if we could see more variety in the locations, not only visually, but also I would like to see reasons to go with certain areas. Let's say you have a bunker near the beach, maybe it has like a secret exit, or let's say it has boat access or something like that. And let's say there's another building more towards the middle of the map where it has a helipad and maybe a worse entrance and exit, but it does have a few added bonuses like that helipad, maybe a bike storage or something like that. I think that would be much cooler than just basing your entire bunker buy-in choice off of price. This was especially a problem with import-export and those warehouses, because really everybody just went for the cheapest option, myself included, because there was no real reason to go for the more expensive ones, especially because the cheapest one had pretty much one of the best locations, and pretty much there was almost no reason to go for any other one besides location. So I would like to see more variety and reasons to go for certain bunkers in GTA Online Gunrunning. Another thing would also be more customization. I feel like they did do this kind of well in Finance and Felony, and especially well with the Biker DLC, but I still like to see even more customization and keep that up, because I do think customizing your bunker and personalizing it is quite awesome. Whether it's putting specific paintings on, or maybe your crew emblem like you could in the Biker DLC, having stuff like that is very nice, and I think a lot of players would enjoy that. Next up at number 2 for one of the things I want is better special vehicles that are actually worth the price tag. Now, special vehicles were something new introduced in import-export, and conceptually and visually they look amazing. They were sort of these beefed up and special versions of vehicles already in the game, which is kind of cool. You have like the Ruiner 2000, which is the base Ruiner with guns and a parachute and rockets and a jump ability, and then you also have like a Voltic with a rocket on the back. You have, the armored Boxville, which just has, tons of armor on it and a gun. However, most of them are not that great, and there's a lot of drawbacks to a lot of them. Whether it's, the Rocket Voltic, where you can only boost a little bit, and you can only boost after being on the ground for a certain amount of time, so you can't keep flying with it. Whether it's, the armored Boxville not being armored pretty much at all, where it only goes down in one RPG or one sticky bomb, even though it says it's armored. Other vehicles like the Wastelander being pretty much useless because you can't transport vehicles on it. And on the other vehicles like the Ruiner 2000 just kind of being too overpriced. Sure, it's not bad necessarily, and it is kind of a fun vehicle, but it's just very pricey for what you actually get, especially whenever like a Hydra's cheaper and can honestly do a lot more damage depending on the select scenario. So I'd like to see more people actually interested in the special vehicles, and the best way to do that is to do one of two things. One is to either make them good and actually live up to their name, and you'll have more features and less drawbacks to them. And because I do understand why they don't want to make them too overpowered and they don't want everybody running around with these vehicles, but the thing is that you have other vehicles already in the game that are far better. You know, why buy the Armored Boxville whenever you can buy the Insurgent pickup for cheaper, and the Insurgent pickup is just overall much better. It's faster, it has more armor, and can hold more people. And the craziest thing is that the Insurgent is cheaper by quite a bit actually. So there's almost no reason to go with the Armored Boxville. And if they don't want to make them too good, then, well, make them cheaper. But I feel like they don't want to make them cheaper, so at least make them good so that people actually want to go and buy them. I haven't bought any of the special vehicles myself because they're just not worth it to me. And it's not that I don't have the money. I could go out and buy them, but I just don't want to waste my money on vehicles, especially whenever I already have better vehicles that can get the job done much easier. Next up is more weapon customization, which is essentially new attachments and new camos. Now, let's first hit off with the new attachments. Now, there are many different attachments they could add to GT Online, but they haven't really done that in the past. The only attachment they've ever really added to GT Online for existing weapons is the drum magazine, which was kind of cool, but I'd like to see them go even further with the attachments. Whether it's new scopes with, you know, different customization there, you've got stuff like the scope, but there's only one scope in the game and it has a very specific reticle, a dot reticle, so why not have different reticles that you could have, different scopes as well. Maybe you want a thermal scope, maybe you want a close range scope, maybe you want a sniper scope for some reason. I would like to see more customization there with weapons, and then also other different types of grips, other types of flashlights, maybe a specific color flashlight that you want. Also being able to customize the color of your reticle on your scope. I always thought it'd be cool if you could put your crew emblem as a reticle on your scope for your gun. I'm sure you only notice your scope in first person whenever you aim down sights, but it would be a nice feature, as well as maybe even putting your crew color and your crew emblem on your actual gun. That would be quite cool. And just more weapon customization in general, and actually useful customization. If we're going to be able to change our grips, and I'd also like to see attachments that not only just increase the power of your gun, but also come with a bit of a drawback. Whether it's a laser sight that you can put on your gun, which maybe increases your hipfire accuracy, so whenever you're hip firing, it's not double the spread of a usual weapon, but maybe only 50% extra spread. But it also has a bit of a drawback of maybe revealing your position to other players, or some other drawback like aim down sights time. And we did actually see this with the drum magazines. The drum magazines actually make you reload slower on your weapon, so I definitely think they could go and do this, which I think would be very nice. And then also talking about weapon camos and weapon and visual weapon customization, why don't we have more camos in GT Online? It's definitely something that a lot of other shooters have been doing. Call of Duty, CSGO, Battlefield, and many others. All these games have different weapon camos, and a lot of people seem to enjoy them. And a lot of people would probably pay good money in GT Online for some certain rare camos. And I'm not asking for anything too outlandish. I'm not asking for, you know, a pink tiger camo or just this crazy moving rainbow camo or anything too crazy like that. However, I wouldn't necessarily mind it because it is GTA, and I think it wouldn't be the worst thing ever if they wanted to do that. If you go on the GTA 5 mod website, you can actually find some cool camos there, and I will show some of those on screen and have some links in the description if you do want to go check out some stuff like that on PC. But at the same time, I think that more camos would be nice, especially if there are some certain rare camos. We've seen this in the past with certain awards and stuff, where you get like a special t-shirt if you do all the elite challenges, or especially with Heist, we saw a lot of that, you know, special t-shirts that you unlock. Or even if they bring back special crates to GT Online, have special camos in there that are only exclusive to maybe certain events, or with certain things that you do with your gun running business. And a lot of people would be doing certain things in the game to get those items, which is something that Rockstar definitely wants. The number 4th thing that I would like to see added in this DLC is better missions that are more replayable. And this is mainly talking about the missions that Finance and Felony, Bikers, and Import-Export created, but mostly Finance and Felony. Now, I may be in the minority here, but I barely do the crate missions for Finance and Felony anymore because, well, they're just kind of repetitive and not that much fun anymore. They were at the beginning, but after you play them a lot, they just get quite repetitive because most of the missions are go here, steal this item, and bring it back. And after you do those hundreds of times pretty much, it starts to get very repetitive. And I feel like there's 2 things contributing to that. One is a lack of variety in the missions, because a lot of them, like I said, are go here, retrieve, a crate, or steal a vehicle, and most of the time that vehicle is very slow, and bring it back. And then also, they're just not that challenging. They don't send that many AI after you, and they're very easy to avoid. And sure, there are other players and stuff like that that could attack you, but most of the time, that's just somebody in a Hydra that blows you up, and there's no real challenge there. And I feel like Import-Export did this actually quite well with their missions, because not only do they send more AI at you, but there's a lot more risk involved, because if you actually, ruin the vehicle, then you have to spend money there. And it actually encourages more people to steal your vehicle than actually just blow you up, which I think, while some people may not like being killed at all, and I feel like that risk involved is a nice thing, but I only like it if it's actually a good challenge, and it's an even challenge. So I'd like to see more variety in the missions, and I feel like Import-Export did this quite well, so I'd like to see them keep that up, and I don't want them to go back to where Finance and Felony was, where it was very repetitive, and a lot of the missions got kind of old quite fast. And then finally, probably my biggest thing I want added in this DLC, and I've already made a video on this in the past, which goes in detail, so I'm not going to go on too long about this, but I definitely want to see new weapons that actually change the meta of GTA Online. Because not only has it been quite a while since we gotten DLC weapons to GTA Online, last one was the Biker DLC, which did add quite a bit, but a lot of them were melee weapons, which I don't know if you could really count. I'd like to not see any melee weapons in this DLC. I feel like we have enough already. But also, a lot of the DLC weapons that we've seen to GTA Online have just been kind of lackluster and not all that great. Sure, some people may like certain weapons that have a certain niche, but the majority of weapons that most people use in GTA Online and that are the best weapons to use in GTA Online are still the base game weapons. We've seen far too many just average pistols or average SMGs or just average shotguns added to GTA Online that aren't that useful. The only few DLC weapons I can think of that are actually that great and have their own niche in GTA Online are weapons like the Marksman Rifle, the Homing Launcher, and maybe, if you want to say, the Heavy Revolver and the Marksman Pistol. A lot of the other weapons are just outclassed by others. Weapons like the Special Carbine and the Bullpup Rifle both are outclassed by the Advanced Rifle, and there's far too many of these cases in GTA Online where just weapons are just getting outclassed by others. And I've already made a video on this, and I do recommend checking that out, where I talk about more about how they can alleviate this, and certain weapons that they could add. But whether it's a new assault rifle that has its own purpose in GTA Online, whether it's high damage, low rate of fire, and low magazine size, or whether it's a new sniper that does amazing damage to limbs, but doesn't do as great of damage to the chest, or whether it's a new SMG that has insane rate of fire, but has a very low magazine size. So one that's good at taking out one enemy at a time, but after that one enemy, most likely you're going to have to reload, therefore you can die during that reload. Weapons like these would change the meta of GTA Online and get people using more weapons and a larger variety of weapons in GTA Online, especially even higher levels, whereas you may see some DLC weapons be used by lower levels before they get other weapons in the game. So like they'll use the sweeper shotgun before they get the assault shotgun, but at the same time I still think that certain weapons can be used by all players in GTA Online depending on their certain scenario. So that's what I'd like to see in GTA Online. If you do want to see me talk more about weapons in GTA Online and what they could do with them and what weapons I'd like to see in this update, then I definitely recommend my video about the one thing that I'd like to see Gunrunning add, and there will be a link in the description to that video if you want to go check it out. But anyways, those are the 5 things that I think Rockstar should improve and add to GTA Online in the Gunrunning DLC. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you not? And let me know your list in the comments. Are there any certain features or things that you'd like to see added to GTA Online in the new Gunrunning DLC? But anyways, your thoughts on all that in the comments. Hope you enjoyed. Feedback's always appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next video.